Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. What are some of your creepy and unexplainable experiences? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. When I was 13 years old, I was staying with my grandparents. Sometime in the early morning, I woke up and looked out my window from my bed. My grandfather walked past the window, stopped, turned toward me, and stared at me with nothing but an emotionless face, completely vacant of any normal facial movement or anything. A few moments pass of us maintaining eye contact, and he just keeps staring at me. It was wrong. The whole moment felt off. My heart starts to race and I freak out. Something is clearly wrong. I jump out of bed and sprint up to my grandparents' bedroom. As I open my door to tell my grandma, I see my grandpa sleeping soundly next to her in bed. I don't know what I saw that night, but it's burned into my memory. The look on his face, the way he was looking at me, I hope I never see it again. This is a long story with a lot of details, so I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. In high school, my buddy and our girlfriends would go on camping trips. We frequently camped in different spots on a lake called Mud Lake, which we noticed after many trips out there that one of the islands, a circular island probably about 40 yards wide, in the lake, had very sandy beaches on it. We decided we'd make a weekend trip and we would camp on the island so we wouldn't have to take our kayaks to the boat launch to go swimming. That Friday, we got on the island at around 6 o'clock and all four of us kayaked. My girlfriend had forgotten something in the truck, so she and my buddy's girlfriend left to go get it. It was about a 15-minute trip by kayak to the island, so we figured it wouldn't take them more than 45 minutes. My buddy and I finished setting up the entire camp, and we sat down in our hammocks and sparked a bowl. After an hour had passed since they first left, we started to get worried, so I went to call them to see where they were at. The first call rang, and there was no answer. The second call said I had no service. When I went to call a third time, my phone died. My buddy then got his phone out of his bag and went to call, but his phone was somehow dead as well. We decided to just keep waiting. Finally, we heard the girls' voices talking and giggling. We could hear the sound of the paddles cutting into the water with every stroke. We heard the kayaks hit sand and partially slide up on the beach. Then we heard nothing. We called out to the girls, no response. I went and checked it out, and the girls weren't on the island. I sat back down and sparked another bowl. By this time, it's completely dark. It would get dark around 9:30 at the time. Just as we were talking about kayaking back to the truck, we heard the girls giggling and talking again. The same thing as before. We hear them get on the island, and then nothing. We both just kind of sat there not knowing what to say. And then it happened again, only about 5 minutes later this time. We then saw a light shining around the lake as if it were coming from a boat. We stood on shore and watched, thinking it was them, and that my girlfriend had probably grabbed my headlamp from the truck. We sat back down, and we heard the girls come up to the island again. This time I looked at my buddy, and he looked like he was freaking out. We talked for about 5 minutes about everything, trying to figure out if we were hearing and seeing the same shit. We had come to the conclusion that the weed we were smoking must be laced with something, even though we had never had problems before with the same bag of weed. So we decided that the next time we heard something, we would both point to exactly where we heard it come from. Right after saying this, we heard the girls approaching the island again. We both pointed in the exact same spot. We both went over to the shoreline, and we couldn't see them. We sat back down again, heard the girls, but this time in a different direction. We both pointed. We could hear their voices loud and clear, hear their laughs. Then the intervals between the times that we would hear them began to shorten, from 5 minutes to 3 minutes to 30 seconds, and soon we started hearing them all around the island. We started to freak out, as it felt like it was turning into chaos around us. Finally, it just went completely quiet. Everything seemed so still. We then heard a train whistle, and a train coming as if it were less than a quarter mile away. Then the train just stopped, and we saw a fire on the shore of the mainland. We stood on the shore of the island looking, and we could see at least 6 to 8 people moving around the fire. My buddy yelled out to see if they were making all the noise. As soon as he yelled, we watched the silhouettes of the people we could see just stop, and the fire went out. The fire went out instantly. A few more weird things happened, but I'll skip to the end. Finally, my buddy and I were completely packing up camping, getting ready to get the fuck out of there, and we heard something behind us. Both of us snapped around so damn quick, and it was our girlfriends standing there with confused looks on their faces. We looked at each other, then back at the girls. We turned back to each other really quickly when we both realized it was still light out. The sun was still up. We were both certain it was at least 11 o'clock by that point. We tried our best to explain everything we could to the girls. The girls said it took them a little longer than usual because they swear they kayaked here, but they didn't see the island, so they figure they must have gone around the wrong bend. They said they ended up having to go back to the boat launch and check the maps to see where the island was, which they claim they went there the first time but didn't see it. We came to the conclusion that the girls were only gone for about half of an hour. We arrived at 6, and we were off the island by 9, but it had felt like to us at the very least 4 to 5 hours. We all still talk about it when we get together. None of us can explain what happened. We have even gone and talked to local tribe elders in the area. We have talked to one tribe's medicine man, and he had a few ideas but wasn't sure. I've had all kinds of theories, but one theory seems to keep popping up. I won't say it just because if anyone has anything to say on this, I want to hear honest opinions. I loved playing basketball and would always go up to the basketball court in the apartments I lived at. I would only leave when it got dark enough I couldn't see. I stopped going up there because I went through a traumatic experience there when I was 11. When I was 16, I decided to face my trauma and go back. I was playing basketball and decided to leave because it was getting dark, and the court is almost completely surrounded by woods. As I turned to leave, I saw something move, so I turned to look. Just at the edge of the woods, I saw an 11-year-old me standing there crying. I ran and refused to go there unless it's completely daylight outside or I'm with multiple people. My ex and I were in Dallas-Fort Worth watching a parade in the old cowtown. I saw a coffin on a stand in front of one of the old storefronts, which I thought was a weird thing to have out on display. I looked away and looked back and it was gone, but I realized the old store was the Undertaker. I was ready to dismiss it as a trick of the light or my subconscious expectations when my ex said, "That's weird, I thought I saw a coffin outside that store." Not super unsettling, but one of the few possibly supernatural experiences I've had. The other was seeing a shadow move across the churchyard next door to my friend's house, but there was no one there. When I was about 5 and my brother was 3, I and my mom were just watching TV. My brother came out and said there was a woman in my room, and she was saying goodbye. And I guess my mom was freaked out because she thought somebody was at his window or something, but nobody was around. So my mom called my grandma because they talk often, and my grandma told her that my great-grandma, Tina, was being cremated that day. My mom wasn't as scared, but happy that her grandma was in his presence that day, I guess. The story sounds really fake, like if I read this, I wouldn't believe it, but I'm for real right now. When I was 10 years old, my parents used to leave home alone and told me there were 3 things I could never do. 1. Leave the house. 2. Use the stove. And 3. Never answer the door. But being dumb, I broke the 3rd one. You see, I was home alone playing Xbox on the couch, and then I heard a knock on the door and saw a tall man there dropping something off. I assumed it was an Amazon package, but I opened the door and grabbed it. And when I went to close the door, I saw the man staring. I just wrote it off as maybe he's just seeing what it was, but later around 7 p.m., already dark, and before my parents were home, I see through my window the screen door open on our porch and thought my parents were home early, but I soon realized it was not my mother and father, it was the man from before, and he was standing there. But then he says something like, "It will haunt me till the day I die. I know you're home." I instantly froze, and he soon started peeking through the windows, trying to see me. But at that point, I was hiding under my bed, and then by the grace of God, my father, a 6'7" German ex-Marine, came home to see this man on the porch saying, "I know you're home," and trying to look through the windows. He then proceeded to ask what he was doing, and he said, "I wanted to play with your boy in there." My father then proceeded to beat the shit out of him and then called the police. About 2 days later, I learned the man was an escaped convict and murdered his previous neighbor's children. I was lucky that day, and I am obviously much wiser. I mean, in today's day and age, knock on the door, delivery package, I know most times the Amazon people just come and go. So I could see a kid opening the door, being unsuspecting. That's pretty freaky. So glad you made it out okay. One evening, it was time to go home from work. I said goodbye to my coworker, turned off my PC, and left. The next morning, I walk into the office, and there's glass everywhere on the floor where I usually sit. I'm like, that's weird. I clean it up and proceed with my day. My coworker comes in and asks me if I cleaned up the glass. I said yes. Then he says, "Come with me. You need to see this on the security footage." He shows me yesterday's video when I left. You see me leaving out the door. My coworker is still sitting there. 10 minutes later, he goes to the bathroom, leaving the office. There's a ceiling lamp above my head usually. For a few moments, nothing happens. Then you see a few weird pixels move from the top to the middle of the screen where the light is. The camera switches to night vision, and the light now suddenly glows brighter and brighter. Then it stops, and for no reason, falls right out of the socket and down onto the floor, shattering into a million pieces. The camera flicks back to normal mode. My coworker comes in to find the carnage. When I was very young, 5 or younger, I would sleep with my bedroom door open. I liked having the light from the hall come in. The head of my bed was against the same wall that my door was in, and my dresser was between my bed and door against the same wall. The dresser would block the light from hitting me and keeping me awake, but at least I could see my room. I hated going to bed when I was young, like most kids. I always had trouble falling asleep though, until I was a teenager. I thought it was pretty much normal to lay in bed for 45 minutes to an hour before falling asleep. I would think about some weird stuff during that time, like for instance, coming up from somewhere with the idea that my family were aliens. I was always scared of aliens growing up, and I have this one memory that I think all the other stuff, my fear of aliens and thinking my family are secretly aliens, is built around. See, one night I went to bed, and as usual, I wasn't tired at all. I lay there on my bed, thinking about how long it's going to be just doing nothing and being bored until sleep finally comes. My eyes itch, so I raise my hands and rub them with the sides of my knuckles. This wasn't tiredness, it was just itching like from allergies. I rub my eyes for maybe a few seconds, then open them and let them readjust to the dim light in my room. Something's wrong with that light though. It's too dim. Without sitting up or more than just turning my head, I look past my dresser toward the door. It's been nearly 40 years since this happened, and I can still remember exactly what it looked like. And I still have no idea what it was. The best I can say is that it was a head, the top of a very strange head. It looked like it had some kind of skin, but the skin was almost totally white, with no pigment at all. And it was wrinkly, like something out of Star Trek's makeup studio. I couldn't see anything else, but whatever this head was attached to was standing right in my doorway, blocking the light. My tiny paranoid brain, of course, immediately shouted, "Alien!" silently to myself. I closed my eyes and stayed perfectly still, thinking if maybe I didn't move, it wouldn't notice me, and would just leave. In what felt like a few more seconds, it was moving. I must have fallen asleep like that, because I just woke up like nothing had happened. Oddly, I was still lying on my back when all my life I usually woke up on my side. Some of my friends and I went to Tucson, Arizona. We were there because one of my friends wanted to see his old college friends. We got a room downtown and decided to go out for some drinks. I ended up meeting up with some other guys who invited me back to their college apartment near campus. My friends went back to the hotel while I tagged along with my new friends. The new friends and I had a great time talking, but it was getting late, so I decided to head back to the hotel. Of course, my phone died, so I couldn't get a hold of a cab or an Uber. However, I could see the hotel from where I was standing. I decided to make the walk back to the hotel at 3 a.m. As I was walking back, I was enjoying the night. All of a sudden, a black cat crossed my path. Once I looked back on the path I was walking, I swear I saw a tree turn and look in my direction, then go back to stillness. The figure of the tree looked like that of a naked woman. Within the blink of an eye, I started to see things moving. I felt like I was being watched. Every house I passed felt like someone was watching me. The trees were moving, tilting toward my direction. The streets I walked past looked like shadows walking around. It felt like I was in Halloween Town from Nightmare Before Christmas. The freakiest part was passing a dried-up riverbed, and it looked like bodies were lying in every direction. It was the most supernatural experience that I've ever had. When I got back to the hotel, I told my friends what had just happened to me. Of course, they teased me, saying I must have smoked or eaten something that was laced. After the jokes, my friends who went to college in Tucson told me that the city was known to have a lot of deaths due to it being an outlaw town. He was taken aback by my story, but wasn't surprised. So every year a group of friends chooses a city to vacay in and splits the cost to stay in a big Airbnb together. In 2022, we decided to go to a city about 2 hours away, since 2 of us out of our group of 6 were pregnant. She and I were entering the 3rd trimester of our pregnancies. We drive separately and get to the Airbnb after the first car around 5 in the evening. The house is 3 stories with 1 large bedroom and bath in the basement, full kitchen, living space, game room, guest bath, and 1 bedroom. The top level had 2 bedrooms and no bathroom. The house is old but renovated. The stairs to the basement have no banister halfway down, and the stairs to the 3rd floor are tight and creaking. The wood floor upstairs wasn't the best, having a few holes in the alcove hallway to the 2 bedrooms. So the first car occupants have chosen their rooms. Our single friend takes the basement, and a couple takes the middle level, leaving both pregnant women and my husband upstairs in the 2 bedrooms. We swim, hang out, go to dinner, come back, hang out some more before turning in for the night. At this point, nothing weird has happened. Yeah, there were a few creepy 1900 black and white family portraits in the basement, but nothing else. So we go to bed, and being almost 6 months pregnant, I wake up and have to pee. Checking my phone to see if I can wait until morning, it's 12:27 a.m. The nearest bathroom is on the 2nd level. At this point in pregnancy, my back is hurting, and the bed my husband and I are sleeping on is a queen. We normally use a king. I have to use the slanted roof to get up out of bed. Trying not to wake my husband, I straighten my back as I walk across the creaking floorboards, certain I'm waking everyone in the house with the noise. I get to the stairs, and the upper level's bright white paint is reflective with the light, making sure I'm fully awake to make this scary descent down these rickety stairs, ensuring I don't fall and kill myself or my unborn child. Thankfully, it goes smoothly, and I reach the 2nd level, taking a deep breath before I hear my husband's voice in my right ear whisper shouting my name like he sometimes does to get my attention. I immediately turn to answer automatically in a whisper, "What?" But nothing and no one is there. Immediately feeling a sense of dread fills me. The stairs are in the middle of the house, and a door to the basement is slightly open to my right. I whisper our friend's name in the basement, thinking he's messing with me, but he doesn't respond. I rush quickly to the bathroom in front of me and shut the door, hating that I left my phone upstairs so I can make my husband come rescue me. I do my thing before going back upstairs as fast as my pregnant body can carry me, laying down in bed, asking my husband if he was awake. He of course is because of my heavy walking and the old floors. I quickly relay what just happened downstairs. My husband is very superstitious. He's interested in anything ghost related. Has talked about doing EVP type stuff in known haunted places to try and catch something. What does he say to his pregnant wife? I'm sure it's fine. Try to go back to sleep. Thankfully, this response was the correct one on his part. I give my stomach a few comfort rubs and fall back asleep. The next morning, we tell our friends what happened as they woke up. The one from the basement first. He told us that at 12:30, he noticed a dark figure on the TV screen at the end of the bed downstairs, and when he turned to look at it toward the stairs, he saw something rush by him on the bed. He said he freaked out, ran the other way, and stared at the wall before falling asleep. I relay to him what happened to me that night, and we think it's weird, but get our coffee and make idle chit-chat until our pregnant friend wakes up. She comes down to the second level, planning to use the basement bathroom since it's bigger. As we are avid horror movie watchers, we relay the events from last night to her. She then tells us that after she got off the phone with her husband, who was unable to come with us due to work, she set her phone down, falling asleep, to only wake a while later to the lamp's chain knocking loudly against the lamp's stem. The bedside table was far enough already, and her door closed. She said it could have been the AC kicking on, but the house was pretty hot since it was summer and older. My husband and I used a handheld fan I brought to try and keep us cool at night, even with the ceiling fan on. When she checked her phone, it was 12:30 p.m. We relayed all this to our two remaining friends, the couple who stayed on the middle level. Neither they nor my husband experienced anything that night. The following night, my husband rented us a hotel room, saying to the majority of our friends that it was for the beds and to make sure my back didn't hurt the entire trip. The hotel did have good beds, but before we left the Airbnb to go to the hotel, he told me and our friend, who was also interested in the paranormal, that he didn't feel comfortable staying at that house another night with me and our unborn child. My husband also offered for our friends to come join us at the hotel if anything happened that night. We left. I slept amazingly and woke up without any pain. Got donuts and went back to the Airbnb to meet up with our friends before exploring the town. We came in to find 3 of them sleeping on the couch together and 1 in the main level bedroom, but they state nothing happened that night. We stayed one more night in the city. My husband and I were still at the hotel, but nothing else happened. Go home safe. I gave the Airbnb a good review overall because it was a nice place and a good location. I know I heard something whisper my name that night. I'm not sure if it was a ghost, skinwalker, or something else entirely, but that sense of dread that filled me told me I was an idiot for acknowledging it so easily.